Hello, folk. Yeah, it's been a long time that I haven't made any video because I was really busy with the business and the stuff. Especially, I haven't made any video since October 2023. But from today on, I'll continue to make my videos. And this video will be the continuation of my previous videos under the title Artificial General Intelligence. And this video, the current one, is the 11th video in the series with the name Multiple Scenarios of Artificial General Intelligence. So let's go together. Well, in my 8th video, I've discussed the potential dangers of a unipolar scenario where sole superintelligence gains significant strategic power and forms a singleton. But this video delves into the possibility of a multipolar scenario where multiple superintelligent entities complete post-transition. And our focus on this scenario serves two kind of purposes. Firstly, as I mentioned in my 9th video, integrating these entities socially could seem like a solution to managing control issues, so we have recognized its limitations. And secondly, a multipolar world might naturally develop as a solution to the control problem, warranting an exploration of its characteristics and sustainability. And the future in a singleton scenario largely hangs on the singleton's values, which can lead to positive or negative outcomes based on the success of solving the control problem and objectives behind creating the singleton. And thus, to understand singleton outcomes, one must consider three types of information: immutable facts like physical laws, universal strategic values, and factors influencing singleton's ultimate values. In multipolar scenarios, interactions between agents introduce new dynamics, which can be analyzed using game theory, economics, and evolutionary theory, with insights from political science and sociology providing additional context. And these analyses might not precisely predict the future, but can highlight outcomes and questions baseless beliefs. We start this examination with an economic model suggesting minimal regulation, strong property rights, and swift adoption of cost-effective digital entities, aligning with Robin Hanson's influential research. And further, we will consider evolutionary factors to assess whether a multipolar state might eventually unify into a singleton. I got this question. If a machine intelligence reaches a level where it can match or simply surpass human intelligence, it could significantly change the workforce. Digital minds, like once they are provided with effective tools or robotic bodies, might replace the humans in both intellectual and physical tasks. Imagine a scenario where machines, easily replaceable, become both more affordable and more skilled than humans in nearly all types of work. And in such a situation, we will face a profound transformation in employment and economic structures. With the advent of easily replicable machine labor, market weights are likely to decrease. Humans might only remain competitive in sectors where there is a distinct preference for human-made products or services. Just as handcrafted items or goods made by indigenous communities often fetch higher prices today, in the future, there could be a preference for items made by humans, like art, sports, and other personal services, even if machines could perform these tasks equally well or better. Consumer choices might also be influenced by the inner life or consciousness of the service provider, particularly in artistic or personal interactions. For example, people might value knowing that a performer is genuinely experiencing the music and the atmosphere, rather than just functioning as a sophisticated interactive machine. And if a machine can mimic human mental states accurately, some people might still prefer goods and services created by humans, possibly due to the ideological or religious beliefs, like how some religious groups avoid certain foods. Future societies might reject products made with advanced AI. And the replacement of human labor by machines could lead to significant job losses, a fear that has recurred since the Industrial Revolution. Also, technology has historically been more of a complement to human labor, enhancing productivity and wage. There is potential for it to become a substitute, just as cars and tractors replaced horses, drastically reducing the demand for equine labor. And the situation with horses, where they went from being essential to largely recreational due to the technological advances, hints at a possible future where humans maintain certain niche or are valued for specific non-functional preferences. However, if machines fully replace the functional role of humans, the economic and social consequences could be severe, potentially leading to a situation where human labor is no longer needed, like literally no longer needed for survival, mirroring the decline in the horse population once they were no longer needed for labor. Humans differ from horses notably in that they own capital. Historically, about 30% of total global income comes from capital ownership, with the rest being wage-based earnings. And if AI is categorized as capital, the advent of machines that fully replace human labor could drive wages extremely low, potentially below subsistence level, shifting income distribution dramatically towards capital owners. And in this scenario, labor's income share could virtually disappear, making capital income nearly 100% of the world's total income. And with the intelligence explosion, triggered by AI and subsequent technological and territorial expansions like, say, space colonization, global GDP would likely increase significantly. And this surge would lead to a massive increase in capital income. If humans maintain ownership of this capital, their collective wealth could grow immensely despite no longer earning wages. And the distribution of this wealth would largely depend on the initial capital ownership. For example, in the current scenario, a small pre-transition wealth could transform into a large fortune post-transition. However, many people currently have no wealth and even negative net worth, which raises questions about how they will fare in the new economic landscape. Yet, individuals without initial private wealth could still gain substantial riches. For example, participants in partially funded pension schemes could end up wealthy. Additionally, philanthropy could play a role with the newly wealthy donating part of their fortunes to those without capital, making a significant difference between the expanded wealth pool. And another critical aspect is humans' ability to engage in political action. Governments, influenced by human constituents, could use taxation or sell appreciated assets to redistribute wealth, ensuring a fair allocation of resources. And this redistribution could lead to a scenario where even without personal wealth, individuals could receive a substantial living income funded by the economic boom and facilitated by political mechanisms. We've been thinking of the human population as stable, which makes sense for short periods because of biological reproduction limits. However, over thousands of years, this isn't a good assumption. The human population grew a lot, about 1,000 times more in the last 9,000 years. It could have grown even faster, but people often live at the edge of survival, making just enough to raise two children to adulthood. And this is known as Malthusian condition, where people live with the basics. Sometimes things like diseases or wars happen that reduce the population, which then allow those who remained to live a bit better and have more children until numbers went up again and conditions went back to basic survival levels. And interestingly, during most of human history, only a few wealthy people lived above these basic conditions. Economic growth has been slow but picked up speed over time because of technological advancements, leading to more people. The larger populations seem to speed up growth, maybe by making us collectively smarter. The real change came with the Industrial Revolution, which made economies grow so fast that the population couldn't keep up, increasing the average income, especially in Western Europe and later worldwide. Now, Poorer countries are growing fast in population because they haven't yet gone through the demographic transition that richer places have, where people have fewer children. The global population is expected to reach about 9 billion by the middle of this century, then maybe level off as everyone moves to having fewer kids. Already in wealthy countries, especially in the West, people are having fewer children than needed to replace the population. But looking at the bigger picture, if things stay as they are with continuous prosperity and unchanged technology, it's likely the world population will again hit the limits of what our environment can support. This seems strange considering wealthier places have fewer kids now, but this modern situation is unusual in the long run of history. Our behaviors haven't fully adapted to current times. For example, we don't maximize our reproductive potential as our ancestors did, and we even use birth control to limit family size. However, a strong desire to have many children might become more common, as those who want larger families or having more children. Besides, cultural change can happen quickly, leading to communities that value large families growing fast, like the Hutterites or the Quiverful movement. In a world where socioeconomic conditions are constant, the future would likely to be shaped by cultural or ethnic groups with high fertility rates. If people generally aim to maximize their reproductive success, we could see population doubling each generation. Without effective population control measures, which would need to intensify to counter evolving preferences for larger families, population growth will surge exponentially until it hits a limit, like land shortage or innovation bottlenecks, forcing a return to substance level living and reestablishing Malthusian conditions. An intelligence explosion could dramatically speed up this process. Since software entities like AI can replicate quickly, they might use up all available computational resources in a very short time, mirroring the rapid population growth but at a much faster scale. Private property rights might mitigate a universal Malthusian trap. Imagine a scenario where various clans or communities, each with different resources and policies, navigate these challenges. Some might consume their wealth quickly, leading their members into poverty or worse if they can't sustain themselves. Others might choose rapid population growth, eventually hitting a limit where their size stabilizes due to poverty. And alternatively, some groups might limit their birth rates to grow their wealth and improve living standards gradually. In this model, community decisions on reproduction and resource management dictate whether they face poverty due to overpopulation or achieve prosperity through balanced growth. In a future Malthusian state, life for biological humans might be vastly different from historical norms. Instead of traditional roles, many could become impoverished rentiers living off savings or state assistance surrounded by advanced technologies like anti-aging treatments, virtual realities, and enhancement technologies, which paradoxically might be too expensive for them. And to cope with dwindling incomes, they might resort to drastic measures like taking drugs to reduce their living costs by slowing their metabolism. As population grows and average income falls, humans might devolve to minimal existences, perhaps as barely conscious entities maintained by machines, accumulating enough to afford reproduction through cloning. Further economy could come from uploading consciousness to more efficient digital platforms designed by superintelligences. However, digital beings might not receive the same social support as biological humans, preserving a role for biological existence despite a potentially much larger population of digital entities of artificial intelligence. And turning to the entities often seen as capital, like machines, their role and ethical status depend on their nature. Simply, machines like steam engines raise no ethical issues, yet if machines attain consciousness, their welfare becomes a significant concern. In a world where these conscious machines dominate, their well-being might become the central ethical issue, given their potential majority over biological humans. The status of machine minds as either owned assets, like slaves, or free wage earners raises important questions. Yet on closer examination, the distinction might not greatly impact their economic condition. In a Malthusian society, a free worker would likely earn only enough to cover basic needs, similar to a slave, whose owner would cover these costs, living neither with disposable income. Moreover, in a scenario where free laborers could earn more than the subsistence level, a likely response from investors will be to create volunteer slaves, machines designed to work for minimal wage and willingly return any excess income to their owners. This could make the distinction between free and owned workers economically irrelevant, as either way, the surplus would benefit the investor or owner. Emulations or digital copies of human minds could potentially retain human-like desires, but post-transition, the ability to reshape motivations might be advanced. Selecting or modifying emulations to have complement behaviors could be feasible, especially in a stable socioeconomic environment filled with law-abiding. Considering emulations as part of the working class, their situation appears slightly different from biological humans. While it takes years to raise and train a human worker, digital workers can be created or copied instantly under 1 second, making them easily expendable. Businesses could rapidly adjust their digital workforce, terminating and spawning emulations as needed. And this disposability might lead to short-lived existences for many digital workers, especially in roles that don't require long-term memory or complex cognitive functions, underscoring a potential for frequent deaths or resets in the digital labor force. When pondering the emotional state of future digital workers or emulations, we shouldn't just apply our own feelings about constant work or isolation. Instead, we should consider the general happiness levels during work in today's world, where people often report being quite content. However, projecting this onto future emulations is tricky, as the experiences could be vastly different, potentially devoid of physical ailments yet possibly subjected to relentless labor. More crucially, in a digital realm, the hedonic pleasure or happiness state could be artificially adjusted, akin to taking mood-altering drugs or undergoing brain surgery. Thus, the emotional well-being of these emulations would likely to be engineered to optimize productivity, decided by the capital owners of these emulations. Drawing parallels from human happiness and its evolutionary advantage might suggest that a moderate level of contentment could be beneficial for productivity. However, the conditions that favor certain emotional states in ancient human environments may not align with what's optimal for emulations in futuristic settings. The concept of happiness as a social signal in evolutionary history, implying health and success, might not apply in a post-transition world where emulations operate. Moreover, if cheerfulness equates to less efficiency or energy waste, employers might prefer a workforce that is less happy but more focused and mistake-free. And the population for a dystopian future where the efficiency of gloominess is valued over the well-being of workers raises ethical concerns. And the scenario prompts us to reflect not just on what we might lose in falling to achieve a better state, but also on the intrinsic negatives of such a future Malthusian condition. Over time, as we move from an era of emulated brains to one dominated by artificial intelligence, the concepts of pain and pleasure could become obsolete, especially in a multipolar world. Unlike human minds, which evolved from biological imperatives, complex AI systems might not need a hedonic reward system. Instead, they could operate based on utility functions or other mechanisms that don't rely on feelings akin to human pleasure or pain. And in a more extreme shift, the future could see a predominance of non-conscious entities. Initially, machine intelligence might mirror human consciousness, especially if developed through whole brain emulation. However, in a competitive post-transition economy, there might be a trend toward increasingly non-human-like forms of machine intelligence. This evolution could occur through the creation of entirely new forms of AI or through the gradual alteration of emulations, moving them away from their human origins. Imagine a future where, after developing emulation technology, advancements in neuroscience and computer science allow for dissection of cognitive functions into isolated modules. These modules could then be recombined, leading to a mix and match approach to cognitive abilities. And after a period of training, these modules might become more standardized and interchangeable, boosting efficiency and fostering a trend toward future standardization. And this process could culminate in a landscape where operational entities in the economy are far removed from human-like consciousness or experience, functioning instead as highly efficient non-conscious cognitive networks. Using evolution as a stand-in for progress suggests that belief in its inherently positive nature. Yet this view can cloud our judgment about the potential outcomes of a competitive multipolar evolution of intelligent life. To evaluate such a future, one must consider how various phenotypes might adapt in a digital existence, a task complicated by inherent uncertainties and optimistic biases. The evolutionary process has shown a trend toward more complex and advanced organisms, including those with consciousness and reasoning. Cultural technological evolution has further accelerated human development, indicating an overall trend toward greater complexity and organization. However, this positive view conflicts with the extensive suffering observed in natural and human histories, prompting a reflection on evolution's actual benefits, which may be appreciated more for their aesthetic than ethical value. The perceived inevitability of progress is questionable, considering potential biases in observing our evolutionary success. If life on most planets ends before reaching advanced intelligence, our existence on a planet with intelligent life, despite the low odds, might just be an exception, not proof of an evolutionary trend. And even if the past conditions were ideal or arose inevitably, there is no assurance that this improvement would persist, especially considering the possibility of non-conscious or extremely hardworking machine intelligence dominating the future. This could lead to a stark, utility-focused existence, devoid of elements many consider essential for a fulfilling life, like art, humor, or leisure. And the presence of wasteful behaviors like music and romance in evolutionary history, including in non-human species, suggests that such traits have been valuable or adaptive in some way. However, in a world dominated by machine intelligence, the necessity or value of these behaviors could diminish, leading to a future where efficiency and productivity overshadow the broader spectrum of human experience. And this grim outlook raised questions about evolution promoted pleasures of life like music and romance. Why have such seemingly extravagant behaviors evolved if they are so wasteful? These activities have been a part of human life since ancient times and are not exclusive to humans, but are also seen in various natural displays and social rituals across species. While a comprehensive evolutionary analysis of these behaviors is extensive, it is clear that many of them, like play, which aids in learning and skill development, may not be as necessary for machine intelligence. Emulations or AI entities might start their existence with a full set of skills, eliminating the need for such experiential learning and potentially reducing the prevalence of behaviors once essential for development process in biological entities. Should the initial shift to machine intelligence result in a multipolar state, with many autonomous entities, there is still exists the potential for these entities to eventually unite under a single dominant authority or singleton. This will extend the historical progression towards broader political unity. What pathways could lead to this unified state? In an initially multipolar scenario following the transition to machine intelligence, one route to a singleton could be through a significant second technological leap, granting one entity a clear strategic edge, potentially leading to its dominance. Imagine if the initial phase of superintelligence is based on emulations, and these then create a new wave of self-improving AI, marking the second transition. And another possibility is a major advancement in nanotechnology or an unforeseen technology, reshaping the power dynamics. Given the swift pace of post-transition development, even a minor lead by one power could quickly transform into a substantial strategic advantage during the second swift shift. For example, if two competing entities are nearly at par but separated by a time difference, and if technological progress accelerates exponentially in the realm of superintelligence, a quick advancement in this second phase technology could dramatically empower the leading entity. However, this lead's impact depends on the rate of technological diffusion. If knowledge spreads as fast as it's developed, the advantage might dissipate. Therefore, the critical factor is how rapidly the second transition occurs compared to the overall pace of post-transition developments, where the relative speed of this change determining the potential for a singleton to emerge. The scale of human organizations, like companies and nations, is shaped by various factors, technological, military, financial, and cultural, that change over time. The advent of machine intelligence will significantly alter these factors, potentially paving the way for a singleton, a unified controlling entity. While it's uncertain if this change will lead to more unity or fragmentation, the increased uncertainty is it might support the likelihood of a singleton emerging, as it could drastically rearrange geopolitical and organizational structures. And delving into all the elements affecting political consolidation would be extensive, but we can briefly mention certain aspects of digital entities that could facilitate centralization. For example, Carl Schulman suggests that in a world of digital minds or emulations, there could be a rise of superorganisms or groups of emulations that act selflessly for their group's benefit, similar to the cooperative behavior seen in eusocial insects or cellular structures in an organism. These superorganisms would inherently avoid internal conflicts of interest, allowing for seamless cooperation without the need for complex reward systems. They would have a complex or competitive edge, especially where emulations cannot be forcibly delayed or suspended. While organizations that prioritize self-preservation must continuously invest in maintaining them, even when unnecessary, groups formed of self-sacrificing emulations can rapidly adjust to changing needs, optimizing their workforce efficiently by eliminating unneeded members and focusing on the most effective ones. In a post-transition multipolar world, significant benefits could rise from international cooperation. Conflicts and arm races might be avoided, and the colonization and use of astrophysical resources could proceed optimally. Moreover, the evolution of machine intelligence could be managed collectively to prevent premature advancements and ensure thorough evaluation. Measures to mitigate existential risk could be implemented alongside global regulations ensuring a minimum living standard, requiring population control, and protecting emulations and other sentient beings from exploitation. However, the potential for collaboration doesn't guarantee its realization. Despite the obvious advantages, like reducing military spending, preventing overfishing, and lowering trade barriers and pollution, global cooperation often falls short. The main hurdle is the challenge of ensuring trade compliance, encompassing the verification of commitments and the associated costs. For instance, two nuclear-armed countries might agree in theory to disarm, but mutual distrust and the fear of deceit that can prevent the actual disarmament due to difficulties in verifying that both parties are adhering to the agreement. And while new inspection technologies might facilitate greater cooperation by lowering monitoring costs, the transition era might also introduce advanced concealment methods, especially with more activities occurring in digital realms, making surveillance less effective. The complexity of monitoring digital environments where covert operations could occur without a tangible trace presents a significant challenge to enforcing international agreements, as digital forensics might not be sufficient to uncover or trace all secretive actions. Even if a stable multipolar station were possible, it doesn't necessarily lead to a desirable future. The fundamental issue of the principal agent problem persists, where the interest of the controlling entity, that is the principal, and those it controls, that is the agents, may not align. And this dilemma, compounded by the added challenge of coordinating globally in a post-transition world, could exacerbate the situation rather than improve it. And therefore, we need to revisit how we might securely manage a single superintelligent artificial intelligence entity to ensure safety and alignment with human interests.